So I've spent a fair bit of time arguing this point, and I was delighted, I think it was last year, when I found an article called Why the Art of Speaking Should Be Taught Alongside Math and Literacy. It explores the importance of implicitly teaching oral communication skills. The article had looked into a school in London, I think, School 21, and they had made Oracy a central aspect of their teaching. According to their principal, co-founder, and executive head, the school supported students in finding their voice, expressing different opinions politely, and challenging one another's thinking. And I think that ability to do that is more important now than it's ever been. I was, before we started, I got onto The Guardian, and there was all these reports from America of the riots and the inability there for people to be able to exchange their views without it ending up going very, very badly. They, that school, School 21, emphasizes very much the 4C. I'm sure you guys all do too: the creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. I think we can all agree that in this new century, people who can master verbal communications are going to be significantly better off than those who can't. And so what is Oracy? Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. Okay. We'll keep going. What is Oracy? Oracy is a term coined by British education researcher Andrew Wilkinson in the 1960s. Just as literacy and fluency is fluency in reading and writing, Oracy is fluency in speaking and listening. It's the ability to convey thoughts and ideas orally in a way that others understand, and of course, to understand what others say. Wilkinson believed, even back then in the 60s, that spoken language skills in education were being neglected. He quite rightly sensed that speaking skills needed to have a label that sounded more formal. You know what other skills we need? Skills on using these things. I can't do it. Okay. I should have let you do this. So we're not going to get excited about my lack of technical ability. Hyman
you could mail
claims
it to
that,
me right away.
well, it's just gone into a different presentation format, and I can't work out how to get it out.
Okay.
Oh, okay, because I've got this little, yeah, no, I don't know how to do it. We'll just ignore that.
No.
Anyway, he said he thought that they needed to elevate speaking to the same level as reading and writing. He thinks, and when I heard this, it really resonated. He said that we often assume that students already know how to challenge an idea because they've been doing it for most of their life, ever since they could speak. Well, my children were anyway. But what he says is they're not doing it well. He says in reality, those oral communication skills about how to challenge ideas in a good way, and we all know from Facebook that there's lots of people who don't know how to do it in a good way, but they need to be taught like core skills. There is no doubt that a well-spoken, confident young person will more successfully navigate life. After all, as speech-to-text applications become increasingly accurate, the ability to input, to write, is actually going to be less necessary. Spoken texts are going to be able to be, I mean, I wish we had this when my son was at school. He could have talked into the computer and it would have been brilliant. So while it is true that we all teach spoken English, it is usually, and this is another thing, it's usually a one-way communication. Students prepare a speech, often of the persuasive type, which they stand up and deliver to the class with varying degrees of success. But how often in real life will the students get to carry out such a one-way communication? It's far more likely that they're going to need to be able to speak clearly, calmly, and confidently as part of a larger conversation. Oracy, like literacy and numeracy, needs to be built into every subject area and area of schooling. It's not enough to put all the responsibility for it on the shoulders of English and literature teachers or whoever, whatever language the children are working with. Certainly we can teach the explicit things like persuasion and elements of voice and those other very detailed communication techniques, but really it needs to be practiced across all curriculum areas if students are going to be really proficient. It's worth noting that many writing forms like podcasts, messages, emails, and blogs actually follow the conventions of spoken English rather than those of written English. And as there's no grammar or spelling check on spoken English, it's important that the students understand the correct forms. Our students will be operating on a global platform and they will need to be fluent. Now, this slide that's up at the moment that actually now makes sense is that even great writers understand the importance of speaking and its relationship to making meaning. There is a reason that we talk things out. E.M. Foster said, "How do I know what I think until I see what I say?" And way back when, Plato said that when the mind is thinking, it is talking to itself. And so many use that verbal form to put a shape to what we are trying to get across. I've worked with students and teachers to improve speaking skills, and obviously have created a number of resources that have proven to be useful. Now, the conversation I had with Raki before, we were going to give you a link to the website where you could go and get them. However,
Yeah,
I
we've had
haven't got.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I haven't got the new ones uploaded to the website. So what I'm going to do is work out with you how to. I'm going to upload them all directly to you at the end. Does that work?
Yep. We've shared
So
your website's link on the email that we had sent.
Yeah,
across.
I know, but they're the old ones. This new one hasn't been uploaded yet. So
yeah,
it's brand new because I was just finishing it today.
Also, Neha, one of our participants, is suggesting that since this slide is on Google Sheet, you can also open it as it is in the PowerPoint presentation.
On a PowerPoint.
Yeah, so as it is, it can open in a PowerPoint.
Hang on, here we go. Hang on, what's this? Slide 5. Slide 6. Okay, this might work. Yes.
If we could have the full screen, would that be possible?
Well, no, because I need to go between.
It's a sheet. Okay.
These extra ones. So
yeah.
So yes, I will make all of these presentations and the notes, and there's a bundle of handouts for students that I've fixed up, and I'll give you all that later.
No problem. Yeah.
So there's a couple of different things. So the 3 most common types for students are those 3. We all do these impromptu orals that they have to do without preparation, persuasive, which they're doing all the time, and dramatic monologues. They're the most common. And in the presentation, it goes through the different aspects of the types of speaking, and gives you all the information that you need to either to use in your classroom or for yourself. The one that I find interesting, though, is this one. And this is a load of, this is a slides on extra persuasion presentation that we don't always think about. We know that at some stage, every student is going to have to try and convince somebody of something. Most of you who have children know that they learn to do this very well and very early.
Absolutely.
And as they get older, the importance, well, not the importance, because asking for ice cream is important when you're 5, but as they grow, the type of communication, the sophistication of the communication is going to grow. In here, we cover the timing, which is about content, volume, or how many of us have had students who wanted to say so much and they had 15 minutes to do it, and they raced through because they needed to put so much material into their presentation. Whereas actually they need to think, I've got 15 minutes, so that's roughly about 1,500 words. So I can only do this, 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 and this, and plan it from the beginning, so that they don't get caught up trying madly to race through their presentations. This one is on the audience. Now, this is interesting. Knowing your audience, I realized just how important this was. Last year, I was co-judging a public speaking competition that is run by the Lions Club in Australia. I know you've got them in India as well. Most places do. And there were 3 finalists, 2 young men from private schools, very well presented, diction was clear, but their content was average. The 3rd student was a young woman from a public school, and she was amazing. She spoke about how music had been used to represent the thoughts and feelings of generations. She started with the 60s and 70s and the significant role that music played in the protest movements. She had judged her audience perfectly, an audience of parents, teachers, community members, and judges. She was really playing to her audience, and it was exceptional. Then there's, does the issue matter to you? Getting students to actually think about, do they care about this? Because if they don't care about it, then your audience isn't going to care either. And the one thing here that I wanted to highlight is this difference between formal and stiff, and a shift in what's appropriate. Now, for most of us, particularly any of you who are in the Cambridge, have worked with the Cambridge system, the oral presentations are very stiff, very formal. However, in the last couple of decades, there's been a rise in young tech millionaires who've never worn a suit in their lives. And over that time, our understanding of what's appropriate and what is right has shifted. And people are beginning to understand that we are not by nature objective beings. What the students need to do now is understand that they need to relax a little, make sure that they make good word choices and expressions and all the right things, but they don't need to be as formal as they needed to be in the past. And I think that's a good thing, because I think it's a good thing. The jury's out on how that works with nerves. I think often the more nervous the students are, the more formal they appear to be. Helping them to understand how to relax and be a little bit less formal, I think, is the way forward for a lot of our students. Handling opposition is very, very important. I think people have realized that attacking your opposition is not appropriate anymore. You know, those old debating skills where you attempted to just rebut in a fairly aggressive way. And I think we are a little bit kinder now. I think that even though if you listen to our politicians, you would not necessarily believe this to be true. But in the rest of the public space, I think people are actually becoming kinder. You know, they have to, there's no value in being destructive. Obviously, students need to know that anything they say is true. They need to be careful about how they deliver information. But I think they need to be more tolerant. I think audiences these days are accepting a kinder way of speaking. They're reasonably well educated now, and most of us who are pretty well educated are put off by arguments that lack grace, and you only have to listen to the politicians to know that's true. I think we have to allow our students to understand that you don't have to agree with anyone, but you don't attack them if you don't need to attack them just don't agree with them. The other thing that I wanted to say here is this one here, which is essential elements of a speech. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time just going through it, just having a look at what some of the slides are, things that you can work with. And there's another one that I needed to find called Elements of Voice, which is about, let's see if it's here. This might be the old one, in which case I'll be devastated, but maybe not. Before I became a teacher, I worked in film and TV, and a lot of, I did some stage directing, and a lot of the elements of voice that are used in drama are equally applicable to oral presentations. And this PowerPoint, which is slowly loading, and after I've done this one, maybe Raki, if there are any questions, we could have a look at a few.
Yeah,
if
sure.
there aren't,
sure. Yeah.
But so yeah, the Elements of Voice PowerPoint presentation covers a whole lot of those dramatic elements that are used. So pitch, diction, tone, and all of those. And there are some tongue twisters at the bottom I've got, that's the script for them, but I've got the pictures with them so you can use them as, you know, meme things. So before we move on, is there anything you've got there that, Rocky, that you...
Yep. The elements of voice is, I think, now important for all educators as well, since online teaching is going on. So it becomes more imperative, to be able to understand that, you know, where do you pause, you know, how's your pitch, what is your tone that you're using. Yeah.
And breathing. It's interesting because I remembered I have a friend, she's a minister at the church I go to, and she is an opera singer. Okay. But I found there were a couple of times where after there'd been a quiet sort of session, she was presenting, the first note was really jarring. And I said to her, have you thought of breathing into it? And she looked at me, she said, teacher used to say the same thing, sort of how important breath is for students speaking and the other modulations and stuff. But with breathing, I think we forget that loudness or delivery doesn't come from your vocal cords. It comes from your breathing. And you don't have to yell to be heard. If you breathe correctly, the voice will be carried. And now I'm waving my arms around, which is always a bit, and the tongue come in. Now, were we going to talk about any questions? I can't see them, so.
Yep, no questions.
Raki, Raki, this is Nirupama here.
Yeah, Miss Nirupama.
Yeah, I feel the expressions now that we are online, I feel the expressions on your face as well as in your tone will add more flavor or essence, whatever you say, and will capture the interest. This comes basically when we are talking about younger kids, you know, grade 1 and 2, to make your... Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. And in the handout package, there's one on nonverbal communication tips about facial expressions and, you know, moving around while you're talking, or the things that some of them we don't use when we're online, but some of them we do. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we've discovered with online teaching, listening to people who are in classes, and you guys would be more aware of this, is that all of those nonverbal things that we depended on in the classroom, you know, being able to have 360-degree vision and notice what was going on around, because that's not available on the online space, the things that are right in front, like you said, facial expressions and actions are a lot more important online than we would think they are in normal classes. And we can see it here. I mean, I am doing what I do, and in my classroom, that doesn't matter too much, but in this little picture, it's a bit distracting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so essential elements of an effective speech, which is of course to do with content delivery and language. And
we do have some hands being raised in case we have any questions. Then we can take that up.
Yeah. Miss Raki, I'm from Delhi.
Yeah.
I'm from Delhi, the RD school. We just got over with our classes yesterday, today, like Friday. Yeah, Friday was our last day. So we completed our online teaching for 2.5 months. From 19th of March, we are doing online. and we took our assessments also online. So our year gets over on the 29th of May. And yes, I totally agree. I was listening to your workshop, and very nice, very impressive. Facial expressions, your language, all that really matters. And yes, oracy skills are very, very, very important. Some children might not be good with their spellings and that, but they speak so well. So when we were taking assessments, we took it in 3 parts. We did a viva in which we could, judge their oracy skills, their speaking skills. And some children did well there, and some did not do well in their writing. So it balances out also. So I totally agree with it. And yes, it's now with the new phase of not only the online teaching, even when a teacher is in a class, how the way she delivers her lessons with her body language and her voice and voice modulation, all that also matters. Children first judge that, and then they see the content. That's my thought.
I can't agree with you more. Whether in the classroom or online, the content will, no matter how good your content is, if the students are not connecting with your voice or with that part of you that they think actually cares about them, it doesn't matter how good your content is.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. Probably if you're using a monotonous tone, or if if your speech is too formal. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's enough for any learner.
So I must add to this that yesterday a child wrote a mail that is not the online class, but your voice, which made all the difference. So wow. Then I realized that.
That's good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good feedback. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have come across them, but there's this move online with these software programs that schools can put onto their servers, and it tracks the children using facial recognition, which is just, the thought of it's just beyond horrendous. But it's supposed to save you those, how many minutes a year you use marking the role in a new, in each class. And this is more for high school than primary, in that your students go, half a dozen classes a day, you might have a number. And what I was trying to say to them was, but if you lose that marking the role bit, you get a student who's had a bad lesson and they come into your class, and the sound of your voice that helps where they are, helps them to say, okay, I'm out of that situation. I am in this one now, and this is a voice I know. And I think people underestimate the importance of hearing your voice and what that voice can mean for them. So I definitely agree with that one. Am I rabbiting on now? Are there other hands up? Has Raki gone? Has everyone gone? Is anybody there?
Yeah, we are right there listening to you.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry.
Yes, ma'am, we are here.
Hearing very intently.
Okay, I was just trying to see if there were any more hands up. Are there?
Shirley Fernando had her hand up, and Zainab and Kirti. Any of you all would like to say anything? Shirley?
Yep.
Shirley, Zainab? No, I guess we can move on.
Well, there seem to be a few people there with, here we go.
Sorry, I'm actually facing back connectivity out here, so I put my video off.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm trying to work out if anybody else had their hands up that I couldn't see. Now, how in India now, what different systems do you have working there? I know some of you will be working with Cambridge. Is that right?
Yeah, many.
And some with the IB. Kirti has raised her hand. Kirti, have you unmuted yourself? Well, no, I can't find her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I currently work with the IB school, and my previous school was also IB. Both in Mumbai itself.
Yeah, can we have your name, please?
Yeah, sorry. So my name is Farah.
Yeah.
So my two schools, so this one and my previous one was IB. Now I'll be making an interesting move for the next academic year, and I'm going to a twin board, which is the local board of ICIC and then IGCSE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it will be an interesting.
Yeah, have you worked with the IGCSE? Sorry, go on.
Previously, years ago, with middle school for IGCSE. Now I'm going with the very little ones again. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the change and the challenges.
Yeah, I have to say, I think I love the IB program.
Yeah,
we have a ridiculous system in our country where all the states have slightly different K to 12 requirements, and everybody keeps implementing new things. I think they should just scrap it all and put everybody on the IB.
I think I feel that if the teacher is good and if she's passionate, it's a lovely curriculum.
Yeah.
Because it's such an open-ended curriculum, I think it does all come down to the class teachers or the grade teachers and the specialist teachers.
I think it does that. I think any school that wants to be successful has got to have and take care of really good staff.
Yes. Agree.
The idea of teacher-proof education that people were trying to push is just ludicrous. It all comes down to the teacher, as people are finding out at the moment, and would very much like this children to go back to school. We've just started back, you see. The states have just started kids back to face-to-face teaching, and the first day back, there were 3 new cases in a school. So who knows what's going to happen with that. So is there anything else that anybody wants to put into that? I have to apologize for my lack of expertise. But what I would like to finish off with is a couple of things that I think are really important. And that is that if I find my slide, like every other skill that we do with our students, the only way to get really good at it is to practice a lot. Now, there's a whole heap of games on the internet that you can find to play with your students to increase their speaking skills. If you want a quiet class, I don't suggest this one, which is my favorite, and it's called One Word at a Time, where the students stand in a big circle and a ball is thrown from one to the other. Each student who catches the ball must add a word to the story before passing it on to someone else. It can be a lot of fun. Teachers can add various rules. I always state that an, and the don't count. And the sophistication required is absolutely up to the teacher. So the game can be adapted for any level. It's particularly good if they're restless, and you can take them outside and let them jump around a little bit. The one that I use the most and have had a whole heap of success with is this particular thing of spontaneous orals. Now they were a staple for me, and if I don't know where I've got the slide, but you'll see them. Every week at least, every student had to complete a spontaneous oral. It went for 1 minute, and it was pretty easy. It was always something that they could relate to. You know, was it a favorite song, favorite food, a movie, a TV show? Some weeks I had a theme that they needed to work with. Other weeks they might have done, the person next to them had to give them a question that they then had to speak for a minute. And there is a mark sheet that goes along with it. And it's a, let's just see if I can find it. Mini oral. Oh, wrong computer. Mini oral sheet slide. This should be it. Come on. Nope. I really am no good at this tech stuff, am I? Yeah, it's not gonna. No, waste of time. Okay, so it everything's gone. Okay. Now I'm back. I've got 2 computers, 2 mouses, 2 mice. So the best part of the spontaneous oral thing was that I would get at least 2 or 3 students in the class to mark them along with me. So there's a very simple mark sheet. There was a slide that I had lined up, but it's somewhere else now. And there's a handout with that you can copy and cut them up. There's 10, I think 10 criteria, things like pace, volume, language, diction, content. And what I found out was what worked out was that when they were actually marking their peers, and I would mark them as well, and then we'd compare and work out if there were differences or why there were differences. And it was really helpful for the students to begin to understand what we meant by some of those things, because I'd been using spontaneous orals for a while before discovering that actually the students didn't really understand what the criteria were or what they meant. So I found it really helpful both for giving them practice, but also giving them peers the opportunity for marking each other. In the first 1 or 2, you'll get some naughty students who'll think they'll be really harsh or whatever, but that usually works out, disappears pretty soon when they have to actually justify why they marked, gave them such low marks or all the rest of it. And it didn't take long for them to start being a bit more positive. So I am very sorry that this has been a little bit of a mess oh, the tongue twisters. Oh, here they are. Here's this. Oh, no, they're not there. Did I have it on this side? No, it's on the other computer. See? Oh, maybe. Okay, so we'll just have a, no, we won't. No, we won't do it because it doesn't want to. But there are some images here of the tongue twisters. They're a lot of fun. But again, not advised if you want a quiet classroom. In fact, most of the things that I would suggest are not good if you want a quiet classroom. My classroom very rarely ever was. But formally, that's all I have at the moment. Are you there, Rocky?
Yes, I am getting logged out again and again. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here we go. We shall yes. Anything else that anyone has to add? Opinions, thoughts?
Hello.
Yeah.
Ma'am, this is Anuradha. I just want to say that I am a home tutor and it is not possible to do any group activity because I'm doing one-to-one tuition. So I use some idiom, one idiom, right? Last 15 minutes, I use it for speaking skills. I give them a axiom, famous axiom, and I give them some vocabulary, which they have to instill in that. And they speak for nearly 2 minutes using that vocabulary. So it helps to enhance their speaking skills as well as writing.
Yeah.
skills. I think I'm going okay.
Yeah. One thing I used to do with a student who I was tutoring, he mumbled a lot. You know, he was a really sweet kid, but he wasn't very forceful, and he mumbled a lot. So I used to get him to stand at the other side of the room and deliver his speeches, you know, speak to me from there, to get him to understand how to be understood without shouting, but the need to not mumble.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, Carolyn, in this, you know, the remote teaching way that we are following right now, the virtual teaching, what would be the focus like? So, you know, I don't know how much focus is being given right now on writing skills when it comes to virtual teaching classes. I'm sure that the students would be required to to write down their assignments and submit and upload it on Google Classroom. So all that would be going on. But when it comes to Oracy, you know, we also have something called as the TED Club for education, where the children participate. So what are the other ways in which we can actually encourage Oracy skills and help children become confident speakers first?
I think it was touched on before we began. The teacher who spoke right at the beginning about a project that she did with students. I think one of the really benefits, if you can say it was a benefit, of this current world health crisis is that in education, what happened was everything had to be changed so fast that there was really no time for the bureaucrats to get involved, and teachers were actually teachers have actually been given their agency back because nobody knew what to do. Teachers were left to turn all this stuff into online teaching, and there was nobody to get in the way and tell them how to do it. They did it the way they knew how. And teachers actually got to do real teaching in a sense without all the hassles of curriculums and all the rest of it. School leaders and departments were just happy to see the kids being engaged. They didn't have a chance. Oh no, you must be teaching it this way, or does this fit into, you know, criteria 7.3b? And project teaching, PBLs have turned out to be really good ways of getting students to work. And I think within those, you have a reporting facility where the students are telling you what they have done. So that there might be a report, but when they come on to whether it's a Zoom room or whatever program you're using, they then have to report. They talk about what they've done. And I think that is really good practice for Oracy.
We did have a session on project-based learning, yeah.
And project-based learning, which is so good now, because as I said, teachers are pretty much left alone to get on with it rather than being harassed by weird and wonderful demands. It's a great way to help Oracy because students can get excited about telling you things. I mean, if they've made something, there are very few students who don't want to tell you about it. Children love to tell you what they've done, in my experience anyway. So yeah, that would be my thought with online stuff, would be with, you know, sort of around the PBL. There was a couple of others that I saw hands up or something. Was that Oracy activities in online teaching that you asked, Rocky?
Yeah, actually I got logged out, so I am just checking if there were any questions so that we can take those.
Sarah had asked on the chat, any suggestions for Oracy activities in online teaching?
In online teaching, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
here it is. Any suggestions? Yeah.
Did that help what I said before about it around PBL?
Yeah.
You've got them making something and they report on it. You know, it can be anything. Now, though, here is something that I haven't put in that I should have put in. Children need to be watching television and they need to watch movies, because spoken English is spoken language, and I can only speak for English because my spoken French is really bad, is not overly formal. It is not perfect. Fluent is not perfect. And often perfect actually just indicates that you're not fluent. Because if anyone, when you're fluent, you use all these phrases, you shorten words, you express things differently. It's very easy when you are listening to a presentation that is very perfect, that you realize that this person is not perhaps a first language English speaker or first language whatever speaker. Because those of us who are really fluent get lazy. And we, you know, run words together, or we don't emphasize different things depending on where you come from. So what you don't want is to have students having to try and be too perfect. Now, I don't know, I was answering something with that and I've lost where I was going. Were we still talking about activities for, were we still talking about activities, or did I get lost on a?
No, yes, you were talking about online activities.
Yeah.
And that was a very good point that you just made for spoken language, to watch movies. Thank you.
Yeah. It's really helpful. That's right. I remember a parent teacher interview in Singapore, and just a delightful young girl, and she was a sort of B plus. And the only thing that was stopping her going up across the line was an over formality in the way she presented and a lack of ease in the language. And I was having the conversation with her father, a parent teacher, and she was only allowed to read textbooks. She wasn't allowed to read fiction. They weren't allowed to watch movies or television. And I tried to explain that for her English to actually get that step up, to become more creative in her language skills, she just had to be familiar with the more relaxed way of speaking. And if your students can get to film or a television show, you can pick it. You tell them what it is you want them to watch. And then they can report to you. Tell me about it. What was good? What wasn't good? Did you like this character? Or, there's a whole range of questions around character development and other English skills that you can use for Oracy practice online. Any opportunity for them to speak about anything is going to help. Well, I suppose there are some things you may not want them to speak about, but there's 2 more hands up, I believe. 2 participants with raised hands.
We have a question in the chat box by Mr. Sayed, and he says that he's found from his personal observation that students who are lagging behind in Oracy skills are compulsorily struggling in expressing their understanding of various other subjects as well. So he wants to know your suggestions. Please provide your esteemed advice towards these conditions.
Yeah.